So we are entering into, and we've already entered into, an incredible discussion this morning. Obviously, I think Hollywood and people all across the globe, and our band is ringing a punctuation there with that. I think the whole world reacted like that with a cymbal crashing when Harvey Weinstein, the news broke of his sexual harassment. We've got Dr. Eve here to talk about sexual harassment this morning. We'd love to take your calls, 021 430 9881. Doc, I'm going to jump right in there. And I think what has been most shocking for me about this entire story is when you look at the list of names, starting with Angelina Jolie, a UNICEF an ambassador who goes all over the world, puts herself in war-torn areas, risks her life, must be one of the bravest, most self-assured, strongest women. If she feels too intimidated in the context of her life to speak out about sexual harassment, until now this wave is broken, how then does someone in the context of our smaller lives have the strength? What is sexual harassment in your eyes? Is it always a big sexual abuse, or can it be something that's smaller, something that's more subtle?
I want to start out by saying that it's almost politically incorrect to be saying, why aren't women reporting? Because that puts a burden of responsibility on women. Yet we do have to look at it to be able to understand the whole culture of abuse and of harassment, because this absolutely is indicative of how harmful it is. So if you ask, what is harassment? I'll come back to, why women don't talk about it. But let's look at the difference between harassment and abuse in a way. We talk about it as a continuum of harm, where it starts out at one place and the harm escalates and escalates until you're looking at a criminal offense such as assault, sexual assault.
Physical elements.
A criminal, exactly, a physical sexual assault that is happening. The harassment is just as bad in terms of the feeling of it. So harassment would be, if I try and think about the differentiation between the two, it's about an unwelcome sexual, physical exchange or invitation from somebody who is in your work environment and has much more power than what you... Power is the whole thing over here, than what you have. And what it actually does is that it threatens your space in your work environment. It threatens your job, because here is somebody who has this power over you. And your job is contingent upon you giving sexual favors, unwanted sexual advances, which this person's bringing onto you, and may even verbally say to you, if you don't, you may lose your job, or if you don't, you stand a chance of not getting a rise, or you're going to not get that promotion that you've been thinking you're going to get.
And it can just as easily be applied.
Exactly. Well, what we're talking about this morning is sexual harassment. What is sexual harassment? What forms does it take? How do you know when you are being sexually harassed? And how do you know when to feel safe enough to speak out against your perpetrator? You can give us a call on 021 430 9881.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Thank you so much, team. Well, it's time for us to continue our talk with our relationship expert, Dr. Eve. Of course, a few weeks ago, the whole drama with regards to Harvey Weinstein, the sexual harassment charges that were laid against him by so many actresses in Hollywood. And we are dissecting this with Dr. Eve this morning. Of course, I also want to talk about something that Charlize Theron said, because she didn't necessarily have any experience with this, but she knows of so many actresses who did. But we'll do that because we've got a caller on the line.
We've got a caller on the line right now who's asked to remain anonymous, and we certainly understand that. And this is where it really does hit home. She would like to know how she can broach this, how she can speak out when it's concerning a family member, which I know in South Africa is far too commonplace. So thank you so much to our caller. A very good morning.
Hello.
Hi, a very good morning. Thank you so much for joining this vitally important conversation. What is your question or request for Dr. Eve?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking. Okay. Anyway, basically, in my childhood, I'm 21 right now. I was sexually abused by a family member, and it's so hard to tell my family that this has been going on. It's years afterwards now, and I'm still. I thought I'd gone over it by now, but just speaking about it is just bringing up new things. So my question is, how do I gain the confidence to tell my family about this?
I want to just say to you that I appreciate you calling in. I know, and I want to say to all of our viewers that this may be triggering their own experiences of sexual abuse and memory. So for you, Anonymous, you've been holding this a secret, which is a heavy secret to be holding for so many years. Tell us what's holding you back from sharing with your family. Why is it that you haven't been able to tell them? What are you afraid of?
I guess I'm afraid that I allowed it to happen. I mean, I could have said no. He didn't force me. And I did this to myself. And I'm scared that I just won't get the help that I think I need.
I definitely would like you to get the help that you need, and there are a number of organizations which offer free services to you. But I think that what you're saying is absolutely, Graham, to answer your question, why is it that women don't tell? Just to say to Anonymous and the many viewers that are watching us, this is not your fault.
Not
this
in
is
any
not
way.
about you. You were a child, and even if you're not a child and you're an Angelina Jolie or some famous film star, in that moment, there is an incredible intimidation that happened to you as a child, where you have absolutely no authority and no ability to stand up against a power figure of a parent, just like the women who are in offices and who are watching us right now understand this dynamic, that if it is your boss or somebody who's older, bigger, more powerful than what you are, you lose your sense of personal authority. You begin to believe, just like our viewer, that this is about me. I could have said no. Why didn't I say no? You couldn't have said no. Nobody would
not your
believe you,
fault.
and he wouldn't have listened to you in any case, just like the Harvey Weinsteins of the world were not listening to the no of women. Please get some counseling.
Thank you so much for being brave enough to phone in this morning. Hopefully this is the first step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
It is in no way your fault, and this is a blanket statement to all the women who are in that exact same position. As you can understand, a very real and raw conversation. The lines are going to remain open. Please phone in if you have any comments or questions. 021 430 9881. We'll continue this conversation in a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's Expresso right here on SABC3. We are sitting down with our relationship expert, Dr. Eve, this morning, talking about sexual harassment. And we got a really moving call a little bit earlier on. And we just want to say once again, reiterate to anybody who's experienced abuse, childhood abuse, sexual harassment, any kind of, intrusion of your personal space. It
Abuse
is
of
not
power,
your fault. We just want to reiterate that. It is people who have power, positions of influence, people who have positions of power, who have abused that power over you. It is not your fault, and it is your right to speak out, and that's what we're trying to help you with this morning.
And to add, to build on that, if some of the most powerful, influential women in the world don't feel strong enough to do it, you certainly can understand your position and know that if it wasn't their fault, it's not your fault.
I just have to say, I'm so enjoying hearing your struggle, Graham, as a man. I can hear you breathing, you're really struggling, and you're anxious as you're talking about this. And why I particularly like that you are struggling, and obviously we are as well as women, because the men in Hollywood have not stood up.
They've been quiet.
They've been quiet. And I think this is what happens to men. They become complicit with a powerful authority, and they don't stand up for us women. So we want men to stand up. And
men are experiencing it to a degree as well. I mean, it's not just something that is... I think any position of power, often we see it being abused in a political sense, and on so many levels of life. It's something that is common throughout all levels of life. And I think the big question for me is, where do you start when dealing with it? Just relating again to our incredible caller earlier this morning, does she strengthen her own position first? Does she seek help? Or does she go to her family? What is the first step? What do you do?
Graham, as you could hear from our caller, there is such an instant personal internal collapse, as we call it, psychologically. And the shame comes in. And the moment that shame comes in, there's a guilt and there's a feeling of there's something wrong with me. And as many of these stars we're talking about with Harvey Weinstein now, they said that they wondered what their real worth was, because if he only saw them as a sexual object, were they really talented? Was there really something special about them? And that immediately...
Oscar winners,
exactly. But were they an Oscar winner because they're really good at performing, or because he just sexualized them? That was where the conundrum comes in. And so they just stay silent because of that. So if you are somebody who now is thinking about this, triggered by this event that's happening, your first step that you want to do is to first of all say, what are the risks and benefits to me Who am I going to feel safe enough with in my environment to tell? The first people that you want to tell is your own family and friends. You want to build up a network of personal support of people who know you and can really hold you in that terrible space, and then go to your company and to talk and report, because there are policies in place. We know that there are procedures in place in companies, but it's very intimidating to walk into that place. So find the personal support that you do need first. People who are going to believe you and not question you, because the minute you get into a company procedure, they're going to question you. It's like his word against your word. Get the personal support first.
We've actually got Lauren on the line this morning with some encouragement. Lauren, good morning. Welcome to Expresso.
Good morning, team.
So what's your encouragement this morning?
I just want to encourage girls, especially young girls in the workplace who are motivated and you're trying to build your own career. When you come across instances of sexual harassment, it's very difficult. I think one feels pressurized and a little bit confused, and not, in my instance, I definitely wasn't sure whether it was big enough to actually report, but it definitely left me feeling very confused. I worked for one of the big 4 audit firms, and we were assisting the public prosecution team in a court case. And I had problems with the DPP, so that's the Director of Public Prosecutions, who not only was throwing sexual advances, but I was left in very uncomfortable circumstances and having to work after hours, and it got to the point where he actually did reach out and touch me in a manner that wasn't really appropriate. And it got to the point where I didn't know what to do, and I think I actually approached an audit partner that's not even in forensic. It was a different partner who raised it, and he said, no, I need to do something about it. But it got to the point where I actually found alternative work. And the sad thing is that the company just put another girl in the same predicament after I left. So by me keeping quiet or not actually raising the severity of it, another girl suffered the same things that I did. So I think, we're all very worried about our careers and things, but it's serious, and women need to speak up.
Why didn't you speak up? If I can speak very plainly, it's Graham here. What was stopping you? What were you most fearful of about speaking out?
I think I was fearful because it was, I didn't think that it was important enough. It wasn't so big. It was just simple gestures or touching me here and there, and I tried, but it got to the point where in our recesses, I would try hide away in the office or the bathroom, or because I felt so uncomfortable. And I think because it was my first proper career, say after my legal articles, I didn't want to do anything that would bring attention or tarnish kind of my career path. And how people speak, he's also, you going places, and I've got connections in the law field. And
Goodness.
so you're weighing up this versus it's a big company client, and now you're going to how are you going to go to the partner and disrupt this relationship they have with this client? But in the bigger thing,
it feels completely overwhelming, like the entire responsibility rests on you. You can hear that, how you felt that you would impact on so many other relationships. And mostly what I'm enjoying hearing you saying is that sense of confusion. Is it big enough?
Definitely.
Is it something that is really big enough to the risk and the benefit, as I was talking about earlier? Is it big enough to take a risk? Because maybe they will just say, oh, well, you're just small, you're not important, and you're just misreading the entire incident. And you've given us what you were asking earlier, how do we actually know when we are being abused or when we're being harassed? You've given us wonderful signs and symptoms around that. Your own feeling, your gut, your body is going to let you know, and then your behavior, your response to it was hiding away and avoiding the situation. That is a sign for everybody to say, actually, this is a red flag. And that's why, I've said earlier, we cannot give women the responsibility of saying they have to be the ones to do the reporting.
Can't be alone, the system needs to change.
Yeah, the system needs to change.
But we're going to unpack this in a little bit. We're going to head to the kitchen, but do give us a call, 021-430-9881.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Well, I think we could spend an entire day, week, year talking around sexual harassment. Thank you so much to the empowered young woman, hopefully feeling a little bit more empowered, that phoned through this morning. Unbelievable statements made already to young women like that, to the thousands, hundreds of thousands of women watching and relating to that. What is your final piece? We've got about 2 minutes to wrap this up. What do you say to women who are feeling abused?
I think the message that we're all giving, the three of us are giving very loudly and strongly, is even though it feels like it is your fault, even though it feels as if you've done something, either the way that you've dressed or the way you've behaved, or maybe a tweet that you've sent or anything you've posted on Facebook, it isn't about you. It's something you really want to hold on to that isn't about you. I know it hits you in the gut and you're going to feel this is about me, but it really isn't about you. And secondly, please get emotional support that you do need. Even if you don't feel ready to go and report it to the company that you're working for, please get emotional, personal support so somebody believes you, that you're not alone with this shame, which we heard from our first caller. She's carried for 21 years through her life.
You don't just get over it. It's
No,
not,
you
you're
don't.
not going to just let it go.
It's called progressive trauma, and the trauma will continue and continue unless you actually get the work done. So don't allow the trauma to progress. Talk about it to somebody who you feel safe and trusting with, even if you don't report to your company immediately. If you want to take this conversation more, please get onto my Facebook page. We have the conversation running over there as well as on Twitter.
You've got a mouthpiece there, you've got a mouthpiece here. We will speak for you on your behalf, but speak to a friend, speak to a family member, speak to a therapist. But you do have to speak out.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. E, for being with us. Of course, we'll do this again next week, Monday. We're going to take a quick ad break. Don't go anywhere.